As your senator, building a modern transportation system will be one of my priorities because investing in transportation is investing in our people. For many working families, transportation isn't just about getting from one place to another. It's about opportunity. It's about keeping a job, getting an education, and building a better future. A strong economy depends on a strong middle class, and a strong middle class depends on having the tools people need to succeed. That's why transportation matters. When workers can get to work reliably, business can grow. When businesses grow, jobs are created. And when jobs are created, families thrive. Imagine a Guam where opportunity is within reach for everyone. I'm Donna Munikanata, and I approve this message.
Good evening and welcome to the near end of this week. It is Friday night. It is 7:32 p.m. on Friday, June 26, 2026 in my, of course, those who are my age and older, this is a very familiar refrain. The time is just flying by. And you know what? I'm glad that you spend this time with me. Thank you so much. Welcome to the evening show. There are two things that I want to talk about tonight. The first is, I don't know if this is our first editorial this year or it's our second editorial. We haven't done many editorials this year. So I used to publish editorials, like I would be the person who drafted and edited and finalized, and the candid editorials I was the author of them. This year, I implemented a new policy where there's an editorial board. And so it goes through circulation and get everybody else's ideas and all that stuff, right? So this might be our first editorial of the year. If it's not, it's our second. And it is about the business licensing process and how, there is the reasons that we suspect the business licensing process has never been streamlined, like both political parties and governors and senators from both sides of the aisle have promised to do for the past 40 years, or I'm sorry, 4 decades, 32 years and counting. And so I'll get into that and I'll even read that editorial. But the first thing that we're going to do is have a conversation with Landon Idlet from the National Weather Service Guam office. And I know that we have these continuing conversations whenever an a weather system opens up or is suspected of opening up somewhere near the Marshall Islands. And it's because, something that develops near the Marshall Islands has a higher potential of affecting Guam, Rota, Tinian, or Saipan. The model guidance from Google DeepMind, which is the AI, it's the non-physics models, the AI models, this is something fairly recent, right? Is showing some predictions that are similar to the predictions Google DeepMind had for a previous large storm. And, I'm not going to say the name of it. I'm just going to wait until we have a conversation with Landon Idlet before we get to better understanding what it is Invest 95W is and might become, but something definitely that we are going to be tracking. And on the other side of the commercial break, we'll be speaking live with Landon Idlet, who can tell us all about that. Stick with us.
Strong communities don't happen by chance. They're built. For nearly 2 decades, Dr. Mary Okada led Guam Community College, transforming it into a powerhouse for workforce development. She expanded the opportunities for students, strengthened job training, and helped build the workforce Guam depends on. She modernized the GCC campus to ensure students gain the skills to meet the demands of today and the future. In 2014, President Barack Obama appointed her to the White House Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, where she worked to expand educational opportunity and strengthen access to federal programs for communities across our region. When it comes to preparing people for real careers, Mary Okada delivers real results. She understands that a stronger workforce means stronger families and a stronger Guam. With Frank Blas Jr.'s experience in public safety and government and Dr. Mary Okada's proven leadership in education and workforce development, the future looks bright for our island. This is the team ready to move Guam forward. Vote Frank Blas Jr. for governor and Dr. Mary Okada for lieutenant governor.
He has that innate talent of even the most difficult times, giving comfort, giving solace, bringing stability. In my 64 years, there are people I've known that have passed away, and there's been Tony that has been there to comfort the family and the loved ones, sometimes the most difficult times of their lives. He could better this community as a public servant, but bring people together, even people with divergent thoughts and philosophies, but in the end, bringing enough comfort, enough stability to a situation that there's a consensus and then resolution and progress that is made. So, I'm so excited. I've seen what a great job Tony's done now back in the legislature, but I do believe that with him as governor, that ability to bring people together, to bring folks even with different perspectives together, it's what this island needs. God bless Atacaubo 2026. God bless Guam.
I'm Tony Atta, and I approve this message.
Welcome back to the show. It is now 7:37 p.m. on Friday, June 26, 2026. And joining us to talk about something that is probably far away, if it's something at all, is Landon Idlet from the National Weather Service Guam office. Good evening, Landon.
Good evening, and I'm not that far off.
The reason I called you earlier today to ask you about, aside from JTWC opening up Invest 95W, is just how similar the early modeling, or whatever it's called, that Google DeepMind did for Sinlaku, how similar it is to what 95W looks like. Is there anything that we need to be mindful of here?
It's really tough, and I was just talking to somebody yesterday about all these tropical systems, these disturbances, and possible cyclone development, and everyone is different. No matter how many of these tropical systems you work, they're all different, whether it's your approach to riding one thing and steady and smoothly, and you escalate through the watches and the warnings and the impacts, versus it's on your doorstep and develops all of a sudden. And we saw that with Mikala and also Helios. Everyone is different. And I was talking to my colleague Joshua about it because he was acting in my capacity. And it's a head scratcher a lot of times, and it's a tremendous headache. So this 95W, we are watching this one, and I know Joshua put this in the regional weather outlook a couple of days ago when it was opened up as an invest rated sub low by JTWC. And so it's a small surface circulation out there, and it's been sustaining showers and thunderstorms and disturbed weather for several days now. A number of forecast models, actually a lot of global models, do spin up something eventually with this one, but not anytime fast. And so the Google DeepMind has been very sluggish and slow to pick up on it. And I think it looks like the Google DeepMind ensemble is really picking this up, really starting on Monday next week, whereas the American GFS and the European model, they've already got it something disturbed in the ensemble runs and start to run with it. But in the next several days, we're not seeing too much motion with this. It's going to be hanging around the Marshall Islands, well to our east, for several days, trying to get its act together. And of course, the big thing is, will it get its act together? A lot of the global models say yes. But until that happens, it's still speculation. And we saw that with, I think, Mikela, as it was coming through our region. The long-range models had a significant typhoon coming through the Mariana Islands. And as each day went by, each subsequent forecast model run, the maximum intensities of time of passage just kept weakening until we had a tropical depression pass through our islands. And so everyone is different. And one of my reservations I tell people to keep in mind is, don't put a lot of trust and anxiety into these long-range trends in the models, because in a strong El Nino year, especially in the wet season, we see these trends all the time, every year. This is not something new. The availability to the public, that is a new and coming thing, but we've been seeing these long-range trends for years and years. And even since I started in this job, I call it the day 10 end of the world scenario, because we see these wild speculations, these spin-ups in the long-range models. And it changes every 6 hours, because every 6 hours we have a new forecast model cycle, pulling in more information, more observations, and it crunches out the next long-range forecast. And so we always wait to see what's happening at the surface. We want to see things evolve at the surface and the observations, and then we know that we're matching onto something incredible, and then it's time to start rolling with it.
Well, so thank you for explaining that. One of the things that I'm not going to do is I have the screenshot of the of what Google DeepMind was showing, right? So one of the things
Yeah.
I'm not going to share that with anybody because it would have a tendency to flip people out, I think.
And that's exactly. I was just looking through and see what the updated models were, and the Google DeepMind is it's a very unifying track of ensemble members, and definitely we want to look for things consistency from model run to model run, but then also consistency between different model cycles, different models, the European, the American, the Google DeepMind. We want to see that consistency. We're seeing some consistency, and that's really with the time frame. We're looking at around July 4th, 5th, and 6th for something to pass somewhere through the region about those intensities, the support for it, the credibility that remains speculative. And so
When
while
when
that
you said Google DeepMind, what you're showing there is something unifying. Can you explain that? Does that mean that Google DeepMind is in agreement with most of the physics models?
Well, in this sense, to some degree, but looking at the Google DeepMind ensemble, all the different individual members, we're seeing a lot of consistency of a typhoon of some intensity pushing through the region, maybe as far south as Guam to the far northern Mariana Islands. So it's overwhelmingly showing a typhoon intense system around July 4th, 5th, and 6th. The European, the American models, not so much. There's a lot more spread, a lot more variability in different solutions. But the Google model, my gosh, if you're looking at that one, again, take it with a grain of salt at this point. We're still quite a ways out at this time frame.
We'll take the Google DeepMind with a grain of salt, yes, because of how far away it is, and of course we're always going to follow your lead. We're going to follow the lead of the Idlet brothers, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a very comforting scene what Google DeepMind is showing today.
Correct. And I do want to point out that just 24 hours ago, a number of forecast models were showing different solutions of something spinning up near Palau in the next several days, something spinning up in the South China Sea, and maybe even several additional tropical systems spinning up in the West Pacific to our east and in the Philippine Sea. But in the latest run, it's cleaned out a lot of those longer range spin ups. So there's a lot of change, a lot of variability. And so I tell people, you can look at the long range stuff, but take it with a grain of salt, because until we actually start seeing that disturbance starting to take shape, don't be anxious over it, but be prepared. And so when there's definitely a concern, a worry that we need to be focused on, we at the Weather Service will make it known.
Can I private message you either tomorrow night or early Sunday morning to see if we need a phone call, a live call on either Sunday morning or Sunday night?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And
Okay.
we're always available
Thank you.
around the clock, really, for any kind of Q&A with anybody.
Thank you.
Even if it's just somebody word on the street, send us a message on our Facebook page, NWS Guam at Facebook, because we are watching that. And if nobody else gets to it, I'll try to respond to it when I get a moment. But, it's going to be an interesting year. We are anticipating a busy, long year with this El Nino pattern in place. It doesn't always materialize. 2023 did not materialize in a lot of ways, but it's just too soon to say, and we have to take it serious, any kind of potential threats. So maximize preparedness, even if it means getting 100 batteries. Make sure you have your batteries on stock. We just saw a lot of earthquakes. I think it was yesterday around the globe, and how many people were caught off guard, not expecting to wake up in Venezuela and think, oh, we're going to have 2 7-point something earthquakes today that changes your life forever. If you can't ask yourself that question, am I ready for a major earthquake today? If you can't answer that with a yes, analyze what you need to do to prepare. Because disasters, typhoons, they have time. Earthquakes, they don't. And earthquakes can strike us at any time around the year in this region. So we have to make sure we have that maintain that general state of preparedness year round in this region.
Gosh, that 1993 earthquake was so fun. August 8, 1993. I was 13 years old. And it was so fun. Like, it was freaky, yes. But it was also like, wow.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous experience. And my gosh, it'll put the fear of God in you, especially when you have to respond and the shaking stops and you think, crap, now what? Where do we go from here?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was too young to maybe realize what all the damage was, right? But I
Hmm.
remember thinking that, wow, what a fun, like it was kind of a fun thing. And of course,
Yeah,
I'm just grateful nobody was killed.
yeah, we were very fortunate with that out here. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was anyway, yeah, so something like that could happen in Guam again. And you're right. When I think about my preparedness, I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly, my whole existence is be prepared. And can I say I'm prepared? Probably not as much as I should be.
I probably need to go to
Um,
Guam Home Center tomorrow and get some stuff.
yeah, I look at the empty gas tanks in my garage and it's like, I keep having it on my to-do list to fill those up. And I keep having on my to-do list to get a generator for the next typhoon. And so the preparedness has got to be there, and the more prepared you are, the better. And my rule with them, I know FEMA, I think it says 3 days of self sustenance as far as food and water. I think it's safer to say here in the islands, we need to be ready to be self sustaining for upwards of 7 days, because if we have a major disaster like Simlaku was in the CNMI,
Yeah.
it's going to take quite a bit of time for all the help from different organizations and the feds to trickle down to the outer, farthest most villages.
Yeah.
And so we have to be self-sustaining for, I would say, twice the length of what the FEMA says.
Well, I hope whatever this is that we're watching, this 95W, or if it dissipates, then comes back as 96W. I hope it just goes away, and I hope Google DeepMind is very wrong.
That's, we always hope for that, and we can always hope and pray for the best outcomes, but prepare for the worst. And so 95, that is not a sure bet to be a major impact for any of us. I know the trends over the last several days has been keeping it well north and east of all of our populated islands, but changes happen, and we still have 8 to 10 days before something could possibly pass through our region somewhere. But right now it's still in the realm of speculation, but there is a disturbance out there. And so we're going to have to watch that, especially for the Marshall Islands in the near term, and then track it as it evolves in the coming days.
Thank you, Landon. I will check you privately tomorrow night, whether we need to have a public call on a Sunday morning or Sunday evening.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. God bless you.
God bless.
Thank you. Bye. So that was Landon Idlet with the National Weather Service Guam office talking to us about something that looks concerning on the AI models, the AI weather models. Invest 95W. I won't tell you exactly what it's showing, but it's anyway. So if it's something that comes, it's looking like it'll come sometime July 4, 5, or 6 is what Landon Idlet knows so far based on the models that he's seeing. And so his essential message is, with or without a storm that's imminent, be prepared. And you heard what he said about earthquakes. Be prepared for that. So I actually don't know how to prepare for an earthquake. I guess I should know that, right? I'll figure it out. I'll go to ghs.guam.gov and see if they have an earthquake preparedness kit checklist. They probably do, right? I mean, that's part of the government's role to have those. I remember when I was in the government, we had those checklists, but I don't know. I haven't checked it in a long time. When we come back from the other side of the commercial break, I want to talk to you about our very first editorial. It could be our second editorial this year. I just can't remember. I just know that they've been rare this year. And it's because we implemented a different procedure and policy for how we do editorials at Kandit. But we came out with a strong one today, and it's about the business licensing and permitting process and how for decades already, and truly for the past 32 years, every governor, almost every senator has promised to streamline the business licensing and permitting process and has failed to do that. And this idea went on because there's recently the Chamber of Commerce held forums for the Republican gubernatorial candidates and for the Democrat gubernatorial candidates, and they all said the same thing. They all said they're going to be business friendly. They're going to streamline the business licensing and permitting process. So the same promises that have been made by gubernatorial candidates for the past several elections going back to 1994. And I'm curious, or we at Kandit are curious, which of them have actual detailed plans on how they're going to do that? Because in the absence of those plans, what we surmise that candidates for governor and senator, if they don't have a plan, if they don't have details, if it's not in their minds already, what it is that they would do, either through policy or through administrative changes or through funding or what have you, to actually streamline the business licensing and permitting process, then they're very likely not telling the truth that that's what they plan to do. And what they really, truly mean is that they're going to be friendly to their business friends. And that, my friends, a lot of that has happened for sure since 1994. We'll get to all of that on the other side of the commercial break. Stick with us.
He has that innate talent of even the most difficult times, giving comfort, giving solace, bringing stability. In my 64 years, there are people I've known that have passed away, and there's been Tony that has been there to comfort the family and the loved ones, sometimes the most difficult times of their lives. He could better this community as a public servant, but bring people together, even people with divergent thoughts and philosophies, but in the end, bringing enough comfort, enough stability to a situation that there's a consensus and then resolution and progress that is made. So, I'm so excited. I've seen what a great job Tony's done now back in the legislature. But I do believe that with him as governor, that ability to bring people together, to bring folks even with different perspectives together, it's what this island needs. God bless Atacaubo 2026. God bless Guam.
I'm Tony Atta, and I approve this message.
Guam's economy is growing. Millions of federal and military buildup dollars are being invested in our island. But too many off-island companies are benefiting, and many of the highest-paying jobs are still going to workers recruited from somewhere else. Frank Blas Jr. and Dr. Mary Okada have a simple belief.
The best jobs on Guam should go to the people of Guam.
Their plan expands workforce training, apprenticeships, and industry certifications so local residents can compete for high-skill, high-pay careers in construction, healthcare, technology, skilled trades, and defense industries. And they know Guam cannot depend on one industry alone. That's why the Blas Okada administration will grow and diversify our economy, strengthen tourism, maximizing military opportunities, and attracting new manufacturing and technology investments that create year-round jobs and long-term economic security. More local jobs, higher wages, more opportunities for our families to build their future right here at home.
Let's invest in our people and build an economy that works for Guam.
Because Guam's future should be built by the people who call Guam home.
Vote Frank Blas Jr. for governor, Dr. Mary Okada for lieutenant governor. Ready on day one.
One of my last, it was my last major assignment at Adelup when I resigned from the governor's office in the summer of 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So it's sometime in 2016, then Governor Eddie Cowell, he assigned me to bring together the regulatory agencies and find out what it is that we needed to do in order to streamline the business licensing and permitting process. And if any of you are familiar with this process, it kind of depends on what type of business license, what type of business that you're opening. Would determine the permits that you need to get and the clearances that you need to get in order to finally get that business license. If you're going to do anything that requires digging into the ground, especially and clearing any type of land, you're going to go through a lengthier process. If you do anything that requires a fire inspection, things could get a little messy. If you're doing anything that requires a sanitary inspection, and because you're dealing with food, things can get a little complicated. The larger the business or the more space that the business takes, the more complicated things get in permitting. And there are very good reasons for these regulations. For instance, one of the clearances that you would need to get if you had to dig somewhere for whatever reason, whether you're going to construct a new building or make sure that you have enough parking spaces, there's different reasons why you would have to dig somewhere. You need to get approval from It's the office where the archaeologist is over at DPR. It's a division within the Department of Parks and Recreation, and the reason the legislature has instituted this the years and years ago is because we don't want development to come at the cost of desecration of ancient burial sites or archaeological sites. We have a very rich history, and we do not want to be, and it's a very good reason, right? So you have to get clearances. You have to get a permit for that. If you are going to be clearing land that's not secondary vegetation, you have to get a clearance from the Department of Agriculture to ensure that there are no endangered species or critical habitat that you would, and if there is, there's a plan, or there's a way to mitigate further damage. You can have your development most likely, but there's ways to mitigate damage. There are times when you have to get GWA or GPA involved if whatever it is that you need permitting for requires clearances according to the Clean Water Act or the Clean Air Act. That's for the larger companies, right? But if you are, for instance, you make really good peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or you make really good egg salad sandwiches, and you've got a kitchen, the nice kitchen, it's clean, you don't have animals that live in the house or that go into the kitchen. You have your plan, you're gonna buy the bread, this is how much the bread costs, this is how much the big cans of tuna cost, and you have you read all or you're read up on how to ensure that the food is properly stored and all that stuff, right? You can't get a sanitary permit to make your tuna sandwiches to sell at the gas station, or even to go door to door with a cooler in Agana and sell the tuna sandwiches or the peanut butter sandwiches. You cannot get your sanitary permit if you're making it out of the same kitchen where your house is, where you live, without certain types of renovations that you would need to make that will cost you a pretty penny, when all it is that you're trying to do is sell these sandwiches, right? And so if you wanted to start a consulting business, then you worked from home, that's a lot easier. You might be able to, it's possible you can get your business license in one day. But if you're going to be doing something that requires a little bit of complication, where there's food involved, or there's some digging involved, there's some clearing involved, it could take you a very long time to get a business license. And it has a lot to do. And it has always been this way. And for the past 32 years, since the election of 1994, every governor who has served, that's 4 governors, 16 legislatures, almost every senator who has ever been elected during that time has made the same promise to streamline this process. Now, what have they meant by that when they said streamline? Did they mean that they were going to cut some of these requirements, that they were going to circumvent the sanitary permitting process, or get rid of the archaeological regulations or whatever, right? Or did they mean something that was more ethical, that was more environmentally and culturally sound, that was more healthful and safe for consumers? Did they mean that they were going to do the things that back in 2016, when I got the regulatory agencies together, these guys had great suggestions. They didn't mind. They actually appreciated. Most of these regulators, they appreciated that leadership at the time was interested in hearing what their solutions were to streamline the process, and they welcomed the streamlining of the process. And it had a lot to do with automation at the time. This is 10 years ago. And imagine how much technology has improved since then. But it had a lot to do with automation of these automated systems communicating with each other, as in, because there's different agencies involved in the business licensing process. So you break down barriers of communication. When you have these automated systems, you bring them together so that they communicate with each other, so that so that the permitting process just runs so much more smooth. And then there were some instances where you needed to hire more employees. It's just that simple. The legislature would need to dedicate more resources to more public health inspectors over the Division of Environmental Health, more help for the archaeologists. These days, it's been 10 years since then. It's questionable whether you need more employees over at DPR and at agriculture when you have technology like LIDAR and ground penetrating radar, the type of technology that allows you to survey what's under the ground without ever having to dig under the ground, or the type of technology and using radar and AI-driven tools and other types of scanning ability that allow you to scan critical habitat to see whether there are any endangered species or any concerns for critical habitat in those areas, to get rid of the manual way and, of course, the backlog in getting your permit from the Department of Agriculture. Or there are just all of these not novel ideas, these things that other jurisdictions do, that common sense dictates, that technology provides opportunities for, in order to streamline the government business licensing and permitting process. So if these are simple solutions, they do not require tons of appropriations or too many changes to existing statutes and policies. If there's nothing like that creates some ideological divide, this is something that leaders in both political parties have embraced with very little argument, actually with no argument at all, that the business licensing and permitting process needs to be streamlined. It needs to be efficient, needs to be automated. Well, why the hell hasn't it been done in the past 32 years? Why 4 decades of broken promises later are we still at this situation where has never really been a one-stop center? I call that the 5-stop center. And it's called the Business Permit Center now. I think it's like some agencies are there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Other agencies are there Tuesday and Thursday. It's just such a joke, right? Where are the online dashboards where all the inputs go into there? And it's not about, and when we schedule for an inspection, and there are enough inspectors because the government made it an actual priority. I'm going to get my inspection within a reasonable time frame from the fire department or from Department of Agriculture or from public health or whatever, right? According to whatever type of efficient process that we can implement in the government of Guam. And when I make this appointment online and I use it as a business member onto this government of Guam dashboard on business licensing and permitting, I know that the system is guiding this such that when the only person I'm going to be waiting behind for my inspection is the person who signed up online before me, and that anybody who signed up after me is waiting in this virtual line after me. Their inspection is going to happen after mine because the system is not going to allow. The automated system is not going to allow for it. It takes away the opportunity for people in the government of Guam who are connected to these other people in business to start playing favorites and to pick someone from the back of the line and put them into the front of the line because they're the cousin, they're the friend, they have a business relationship together that's completely unethical and illegal. Taking away the ability for regulators to an opportunity for the regulators to be bribed and to accept bribes, taking away the ability for people like senators, lieutenant governors, mayors to be the ones to play the knight in shining armor and say, I can help you. Let me help you out with the problem that you're having because I know you or because I'm related to you or whatever the case may be, whatever the favoritism is, however that cronyism and that transactionalism works. This is what this antiquated process produces. It produces an environment where these parasites on public service are able to feed at the trough. And that's what's been happening over the past few decades. And perhaps this is the reason that many of the politicians don't want the system to change, because this is how they're able to do favors and get, and it's kind of, you look at the businesses that are able to get their inspections done right away, or you wonder, how did they even pass? How did they get a permit for this or that? Or they're able to get their projects off the ground far more timely than you are. And you compared their names to campaign contribution reports. They're all there. I don't think, I suppose that's anecdotal evidence, right? But where there's smoke, there's fire. But I don't think it's that's the only thing that's sinister about this idea of, creating a business-friendly environment, because that's what the thing has been since 94, right? The election of 94, 98, 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, 2022. Now we're at 2026. 9 elections, gubernatorial. And I suppose 18 legislative. I must have counted that wrong. I thought it was 16 legislatures. No, it's 18 legislatures. Have talked about being business friendly and how that's so important for the economy, for commerce, for the tourism industry, for new industries, diversification, and blah, 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 blah. All the stuff that's always talked about at these Chamber of Commerce type debates or forums, and in the commercials that the candidates will put out about being business friendly. Over the past 32 years, the politicians of both parties have had the opportunity to make the business licensing and permitting process business friendly through simple changes. They haven't done it. But you know what has changed over the past 32 years? There have been companies that have benefited very greatly from the economy of the past 32 years, or from the special dispensations that they've received from the public sector the past 32 years. And whether that was through government contracts that they always seem to get, or even the smaller businesses that would benefit from sole source contracts and direct payments. Also, the same businesses that seem to make out very well and they're treated as being rewarded for their economic stewardship of the economy of the island, in getting their tax breaks, qualifying certificates, where some of them don't pay any taxes at all. Some of them pay some taxes, but at highly discounted rates. Entire industries that have exceptions from the business privilege tax that just so happen to be connected to the most powerful families. I mean, look at the banking exception in the business privilege tax. It's insanity. Companies that have been receiving millions in tax credits. I mean, their politicians have been business friendly, just not to every business. Because while there have been businesses who have made off quite well because of their connection to the government of Guam, and they've been, they have just been chunking it up off of the public trough. Everybody else, all the other businesses, they got to pay the taxes, and they're paying more taxes because in order to feed a government that keeps feeding these larger businesses that don't pay the taxes, or are sure as heck not paying their fair share. And all the other businesses that are not treated with favor when They go for a permit or a renewal of permit, renewal of their business license, all the other businesses that have to wait in line just like everybody else, except for those who are favored either by a regulator or by a politician who calls into the regulators and tells them to do something special for their friends. This is the problem that we have in our island. And if we don't fix this nature of transactionalism that we are just fixed in because we elect people who condone this and participate in this type of behavior, things will never be fair. And if you wonder why so many young people leave, it's because why would they stay in a place where the playing field isn't level for them at all? Where they have to work so much harder just to get on level footing with somebody else who doesn't work at all and just gets the favor because of something that they did for a campaign or something that they did for you personally or because they're related to you. This, my friends, one of the ways to figure out whether a candidate for governor or a candidate for senator is honest and honestly has the people's future in mind is ask them, what are their specific plans to streamline the business licensing and permitting process? And if they don't have a specific plan, you bet your bottom dollar that their plan is just to use government resources for their business friends and nothing else. Everything else that they say is absolute BS. For Candid News, I'm Troy Torres. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Tomorrow is my day off. I intend for it to be my day off, so I will see you guys on Sunday morning. I'm Troy Torres. Good night.